UNIFER is digging in for a long strike against General Motors Company at the automaker's Kami assembly plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, saying the company refuses to agree to contract language that would provide job security for workers. A meeting with senior GM officials on Thursday and conversations with GM negotiators on the weekend did not lead to any progress on the issue of job security, UNIFER President Jerry Dias said Sunday. The reality is, we're no closer today than we were even when we went out on strike, Mr. Dias said as UNIFER members prepared for a rally at the plant on Sunday morning. About 2,500 workers went on strike September 17. The strike was set to enter its third week Sunday evening. Story continues below. Advertisement. There's no meaningful dialogue happening on the big issue, which is job security, Mr. Dias said. This is going nowhere fast. Read more. UNIFER's Jerry Dias emerges as key voice on NAFTA workers at Kami assemble the Chevrolet Equinox crossover utility vehicle, GM's entrant in one of the hottest segments of the market in Canada and the United States. It's also one of GM's best-selling vehicles in both countries. Job security arose as an issue earlier this year when GM said it would shift production of the Equinox's GMC twin, the Terrain, to Mexico, leading to the elimination of 600 jobs. The actual shift of the Terrain took place in July, just as negotiations on a new contract began. The Equinox is also assembled in Mexico at plants in Ramos Arizpe and San Luis Potosi, leading to the union's position during contract talks that Kami be designated as the lead plant for the Equinox. That would ensure that the plant would be the first to receive new investment when it comes time to retool for a new generation of the vehicle and would be the last plant to cut production if sales slide. Story continues below. Advertisement. This is really about the fact that they have two assembly plants in Mexico where they pay people nothing and they are not going to put any restrictions in place for future production volume so they can move it, Mr. Dias said. GM invested more than $500 million in the plant last year to prepare it to make the current generation of the Equinox. That investment should secure the future of the plant through to the mid-2020s, analysts believe. One industry source said, however, that GM is worried that a new crossover, the Chevrolet Blazer, which is slightly bigger than Equinox, will cut into sales of the older vehicle, so it doesn't want its hands tied by labor agreements. They want to keep their options open, Mr. Dias said. We're not fools, we understand their option is Mexico and $300 jobs. He said GM committed in a contract signed with UNIFER last year that it invest at plants in Oshawa, Ontario, and St. Catharines, Ontario. GM also committed to the United Auto Workers Union that it would continue to assemble the Chevrolet Cruze in Lordstown, Ohio, he said. This thing's going to go on for a while, there's no question in my mind, Mr. Dias said, referring to the strike. There's too much at stake. Story continues below. Advertisement. Kami has been operating 3 shifts a day, 6 days a week for several years amid strong demand for the vehicle and growth in the crossover segment. Workers built more than 300,000 vehicles at Kami in 2016, but production was expected to fall to about 250,000 even before the strike. Equinox sales soared 85% in the U.S. market in August. The strike has led to layoffs at the GM plant in St. Catharines, which makes transmissions for Kami, and has affected a GM plant in Spring Hill, Tennessee, that supplies Equinox engines. Magna International Incorporated, which supplies about $1,900 U.S. worth of parts to Kami for the Equinox, including the seats, has stopped shipping components to the plant. GM's policy is not to comment on negotiations.